If we're okay, I think we'll start. So, firstly, congratulate yourselves on being here this morning. As you can see, some of our members have decided to take some time for personal reflection after last night's incidents and are clearly reflecting now, and we'll be returning to the fold later on, I expect. But of course, we live in uncertain times, so maybe they won't. Who knows? But as things develop on a virtually minute-by-minute basis, here in Neon, we continue with our mission, untravelled by events across the country. And we are glad to welcome our first speaker this morning. We'll go straight into our first speaker. I think it's wonderful, again, to have the voice from the further education and college sector represented at this year's conference. I think, as some of you all know, in the last year or so, we I think have been able to link much more strongly with colleges through Neon than we have in the past. And we're hoping we will continue to do that into the future. But now we have our first speaker, Caroline Rowley, who is the Regional Director for the Association of Colleges in Yorkshire and Humber. Caroline's been in the post for a long time now, 13 or 14 years she was telling me. Also, again, has history of working in Merseyside in widening access to the arts. So, again, comes from a strong background of extending opportunity and engagement across different communities, different groups. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome Caroline.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good morning. Two things to say to you before we start about last night's events. As much as we know is, first of all, public opinion is not where public opinion has been represented to be. And we're all, I think, surprised and interested to see how that analysis works out. Hopefully it is what we will all have been working for, which is young people did register and did get out there to vote. The second, slightly more difficult, is forming a government. It seems immediately apparent that coalition isn't going to be on. We're going to be looking at some sort of hung or minority government, and that's got huge policy implications, particularly for the colleges sector, and I'll touch on some of that this morning. So, congratulations on your conference. National Educational Opportunities Network, absolutely crucial. It's a delight to be invited, it's a delight to know that you're meeting together, networking and making sure that widening participation is on the agenda and stays on the agenda. I'm going to talk with you for a few minutes today and explain some of the thinking from the colleges sector. The colleges sector, you'll all know, the sixth form and further education sector, the specialist colleges and the designated colleges. I intend to do the keynote presentation in two parts. First of all, to give you some thoughts, offer some thoughts and ideas from the Association of Colleges perspective, and that is, as always, with feedback from our members, the colleges. And then the second, just to share a few thoughts, an alternative take, and some questions around a search for relevance, and ensuring the relevance of higher education, and questions in that field. In terms of the Association of Colleges, you know, hopefully, many of you will know, the Association of Colleges is the professional membership body for the colleges sector. That means that we are funded by the colleges on a subscription basis to promote, support and represent them, and you can see there some details in relation to the manifesto and the political lobbying work that we undertake, as well as the representation work. The idea here is that the college students are interwoven, and we never forget our students because they're interwoven into all our presentations. I'm going to talk to you about widening access to higher education from the two perspectives. The first one is as colleges providers of students to higher education, and the second as colleges are providers of higher education in their own right. I think once I've introduced you to every college in Yorkshire and Humber, I think we can move on with a little more pace there. Okay, a quick recap of who we are in Yorkshire and the Humber. I appreciate that this is a national conference, so what I'll encourage you to do early on a Friday morning after a late night is take any of those numbers and times them by 9, and you'll be about right for the national figures. Okay, so that's 285,000 students each year in Yorkshire and the Humber. That's 80,000 16 to 19-year-olds. So what that means in Yorkshire and the Humber is at any one time, 50% of all 16 to 19-year-olds are students in our colleges. And that's quite a substantial undertaking of which many people are not aware. So for instance, at the moment we've got 17,000 A-level students in the colleges across Yorkshire, 175,000 adults and 30,000 apprenticeships. And I'm going to talk a little bit more later about some of the issues around widening access and new apprenticeship arrangements and some thoughts and provocations there. 15,000 higher education students in colleges across Yorkshire and the Humber. Yorkshire and the Humber traditionally, I think because of our industrial heritage, I think because of a more regularised system of night school and prolonged learning, tends to have a higher level of HE students working through our colleges. 18,000 staff, we're working with 20,000 businesses and £750 million turnover. 95% of colleges in Yorkshire are respected as good or outstanding, and you'll know that that's the benchmark of what we take as from Ofsted of quality and quality issues. So, some feedback on widening access and the college sector. So, latest feedback is that the profile of our students is changing. The tradition and the stereotype of our college-based higher education students is that they are part-time and mature students, but increasingly we're increasing the number of full-time students and the number of younger students. Traditionally, college-based higher education has been, if you like, has evolved from existing provision, and it's evolved almost to enable the progression of students. But increasingly, colleges are initiating and setting up higher education provision designed by subject, by cohort, and increasingly in partnership with employers. We've seen some difficulties in relation to funding, with reductions in funding from FECs, and in the region we're getting increasing concerns from colleges about HEIs making low and unconditional offers to our students in an increasingly competitive environment. And whilst on the one hand that can look and sound like a positive move in relation to widening access and participation, it has major and profound implications for our students and their futures, and it's something that we're actively seeking to discourage. So I wouldn't be surprised at some point to see chair-to-chair letters in relation to higher education institutions that are making unhelpful, unconditional offers. Colleges welcoming collective and collaborative partnerships with HEIs, working on access, whether that be by projects or initiatives, or the long-standing partnerships that exist, for example, and I'm sure these exist in every part of the country, York Higher, Sheffield Hallam, the work that Hull University do in relation to collaboration, and a positive response to the new National Collaborative Outreach projects. We're also looking increasingly around the combinations of higher education accreditation and FDAP, TDAP being nurtured and encouraged, and I wouldn't understate the importance and significance to widening access of those new arrangements around foundation degree awarding powers and taught degree awarding powers, with Newcastle leading the way in being awarded degree awarding powers, and others such as Grimsby and Hull following on reasonably rapidly. And I think that's a significant part of a widening access landscape. Colleges can be frustrated by the higher education and accreditation partnerships. We have issues where we feel that partnerships are being seen as commercial rather than for social equality or social mobility reasons, where they're temporary and transient rather than long-term and strategic, where the costs are so great and the fees that are levied are so undermine the quality of the provision, and where there's no real endeavour to address credit accumulation and flexible accreditation. So there's a real danger, I think, with resources and with collaboration, that widening access is in danger of becoming a project or initiative or a department within an institution doing excellent work to widen access, but the institutions themselves are possibly undermining access in relation to the partnerships and collaboration on a wider basis. Okay, so a couple of thoughts and provocations from the colleges and the Association of Colleges. I think we need to widen the concept and what we mean by higher education beyond the institution. I think we are still in a position when we think of widening access, we mean to an institution rather than the higher education. We propose that we move to a concept of tertiary education with degree and higher apprenticeships, with technical higher education, professional higher education with various routes and types of attendance, and academic higher education, all with the same supporting fees and loan system to underpin and support students through those processes. We're looking for a system of higher education that's intellectually robust and rigorous, academically excellent, relevant and high quality, develops student potential and capacity, and is based on demonstrated ability and what students achieved. That is not based on income, how old you are, your work or family commitments, where you live or how you attend, and that it enables individuals to meet considerable social economic challenges that they face. I wanted to talk to you today, just in case this hasn't been raised and you haven't had a chance to have a debate or discussion, around some thoughts around some of the opportunities inherent in the new apprenticeship levy. Just for a quick recap, because I'm sure you all know about this, this is a big change in the education and skills landscape. I've been involved in education and skills for something like 25 years, and I've seen a series of initiatives such as individual learning accounts, various different government initiatives that have been transient, not well thought through, unlikely to get embedded. My view is this new apprenticeship levy is a major systemic change in what and how we deliver and how people access education. So I just wanted to touch base with you to make sure and flag up the possibilities and opportunities around this. So first of all, it's a new tax on employers, and even the Conservative Minister for Skills said, remember that a Conservative government doesn't like to levy taxes on employers. So in order for them to do this, it's their measure of their enthusiasm and passion in relation to skills. That will be 0.5% of payroll for employers with over a £3 million payroll. And now there's a huge number of allowances and systems that need approaching it, but the development of higher level skills and degree apprenticeships has been a major area and one of the most significant areas of interest in relation to the evolution of apprenticeships. There is more interest in higher level apprenticeships than there has been in what the country actually needs, which is level 1 and level 2 apprenticeships. 16 to 18-year-old apprenticeships remain state funded, and I wanted to talk to you about the FECs seminar apprenticeships, where it really came home. I think it's over in Manchester that there's an advertising hoarding emblazoned with the words 23 degree and debt free, and that's one organisation's interpretation of the possibilities and permutations inherent in degree apprenticeships. My analysis would be that apprenticeships offer a large-scale, viable alternative to the traditional 3-year full-time degree programmes. They offer a route for individuals to be able to work, to earn, to develop and to progress in accordance with their careers and lifestyle. And it's something that we, through collaborative partnerships, need to be discussing and to be enthusiastic about. A few ideas and thoughts to contribute to that. Nationally, there are 22,000 levy-paying employers. 450 companies will pay 50% of the total levy. Why am I telling you that? Well, I'm telling you that because it means that 450 companies are getting an awful lot of approaches to working to be collaborative partners, because they will have effectively 0.5% of their payroll year in, year out, which they have to spend on apprenticeships. That's creating huge pots of money that cannot simply be spent on funding entry-level employees. It's going to have to be spent across the employees. It's going to have to be spent across the different levels. 450 companies paying 50% of the levy also tells you something about the nature and size and scale of companies in this country. We are effectively an SME economy with the number of large companies is relatively small. 2,000 levy-paying employees in Yorkshire and the Humber, and £1.5 billion going to be raised by the levy. I've left some of the detailed text in smaller font there. It's just worth pointing out that I'm presenting you with a very rosy picture of this potential. 87 slides worth of bureaucracy are currently being touted around the colleges sector, so it doesn't come without some concerns in relation to how it's going to be administered. At the moment, we're a little bit stuck in the mud in relation to government decisions, in relation to allocations. And it was one of the issues this morning we would have been progressing with the department now that the election's over. So for us in the college sector, there are some real immediate issues around the fact that we may not be forming a government this weekend, and it may be a few weeks before we can see our way clear to government. But in relation to these apprenticeships, there's also concerns about gaming and fraud and scamming around how that money's spent, and getting the appropriate balance between quality and enabling mass participation by companies across the country. But a few ideas around some of the chatter or quotes or hyperbole around this. KPMG already use their apprentices to mentor their graduates. Barclays are considering the possibility of going over completely to recruitment from 18 and working through their own degree level apprenticeships. If that sort of idea and theme gets hold, as it is in some small measure direct from college, there are major implications for the way higher education institutions engage with employers and deliver their degree programmes. I met with Health Education England recently, and one of the things they said was they keep being approached by universities to talk about degree apprenticeships, and they get into a conversation and they talk about this degree programme and say, no, it's not a degree programme where somebody's working and studying part-time, it's got to be a degree apprenticeship. So there's some real issues there that universities that want to widen access can't just repackage their existing degree programmes and hope that that'll do. There's a real opportunity there to do some exciting, engaging work, but it won't just be able to be a repackaging of our existing provision. NHS. Colleges and the NHS in this region are already working very closely in partnership, are already evolving that provision. The NHS is expecting the biggest use of the levy will not be for entrance to work, it will be for the upskilling, technical upskilling of their existing staff at a size and scale we've probably not seen perhaps since the 1980s and some of those large-scale schemes to address unemployment. There is a concern that companies will establish their own provision and we'll see that marketisation of higher education in relation to those private providers and some of the issues around there. But spending our levy will become a theme and it will drive corporate action. I know workforce development managers, directors in the NHS whose concern is that their entire training budget is going to be slashed because they will be perceived to have an apprenticeship budget. But I think, notwithstanding all that, college and higher education response will be vital. Colleges currently dwell in the SME market, although they're making great steps and great endeavours to engage with large companies on the workforce development front. So I would encourage those engaged with widening access to explore the new apprenticeship levy, to develop provision in partnership between colleges, HIs and employers. I cannot emphasise that enough, that there will be a more equal partnership of expertise and capacity, and to explore apprenticeships by sector, by level, by employer engagement and by expertise, and avoid there will inevitably, in a large-scale new system, be hitches, glitches and traps, and it's working in those partnerships that will help avoid those issues. I think it's an opportunity to revolutionise access to higher level skills in higher education. I think if you put that together with a post-Brexit economy and the work that we're doing and colleges are doing and no doubt you're doing in relation to homegrown talent, I think there's some real opportunities for us to make a difference. Just a couple of minutes on alternative takes on higher education and widening access. My background, as mentioned earlier, is in the museums sector in Liverpool. I joined the museums in 1999 with the remit completely of widening access and greater inclusion in museums and galleries. Very quickly it became apparent that it was too simple to widen access and talk about participation. What we had to talk about was making our museums and galleries relevant to the population, relevant to participation. And it's a thought I would offer you around 20 years into a widening access agenda. What's our role in ensuring the relevance of higher education across all sections of population, for all socio-economic groups, by area, by postcode, by career, by life cycle expectation, and perhaps suggest to you that there is some maxing out in terms of our current approach to widening access to higher education. We may have peaked in our current sectors of the population. I'm going to need to think of more relevant, more ways to engage people and help them to see the relevance of higher education in relation to their lifestyles and their occupations and the way that they live their lives. Okay, I think there's a danger, and this comes directly, you'll see, from museums world. There's a danger of a culturally imperialistic approach. Are we implicitly knowing what's good for people? Are we presuming that there's a value in higher education? Are we still certain that there is always a value for all people in a higher education. And with the ever higher fees, better buildings, facilities, increasing focus on a consumeristic approach, is there a danger that widening access initiatives are becoming a form of soft sell or soft marketing for higher education? The final point is a suggestion or prompt that I'm happy to be challenged on is I think that we've widened access to higher level skills in undergraduate studies, but how much progress have we made in widening access to research, development and innovation? If we look at ideas around democratising innovation around the world and better engagement with research and development to drive up national productivity, enabling a better educated population to better engage with change and improvement, have we paid enough attention to widening access and increasing participation in the gold standard of higher education institutions, which is the research that you undertake, the world-class cutting-edge research? How engaged is the population? How much effort have we made to widen access to that part of the of higher education provision? It's the gold standard, it's what everybody knows you for, you're known around the world. So where are the higher education run open source innovation models, the Seeker Solver networks, the weekly challenge emails to all your graduates? Where are the Procter & Gamble style product development initiatives and reward structures? Where are the public understanding of everything programs? How easy is it for your alumni, your individuals, companies and SMEs to get access and benefit from the very best cutting edge work that you do? And just examining the research excellence framework and the sluggish evolution of impact and impact measures, unevenly spread and inconsistently evaluated, I would suggest and end by saying considering those factors starts to suggest that in terms of higher education, in the most modern context, we are perhaps only really halfway there. Thank you.